All right, we are recording. I'm joined today by John Dyck, who is a postdoctoral fellow at Auburn University. Thank you so much for joining me today, John.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so in the paper you co-wrote with Matt Johnson called Appreciating Bad Art from 2017, the Journal of Value Inquiry, you present this account of art that's so bad it's good, right? And what makes it the case that an artwork can become so bad that it somehow becomes good. And then you talk about how we as an audience appreciate and take pleasure in works that are bad but somehow still good, despite not really despite their flaws, but because of their flaws, right? And so I really like this paper. There's a lot of great stuff in here. The examples are fantastic, but I want to press you on something. And according to the view you present, we don't enjoy these works of art that are so bad that they're good because, we're delighting in the failure of the individuals who made them, right? That it's not a sense of sort of schadenfreude, it's not a sense of superiority to these people, it's not looking down on them. Rather, we sort of bracket those concerns, right, or distance ourselves from those concerns, or don't take an interest. We sort of take a disinterested pleasure, right, in a Kantian sense, perhaps, in these works of art. And what we end up doing is, with an awareness of the failed intentions, we are attending to the bizarreness that results from the failed intentions, right? So Tommy Wiseau's The Room, right, is a really clear example of, it's intended to be a drama, but it fails miserably at being a drama, right? And the results of that failure are bizarre. There's a lot of weird stuff happening, and we're delighting in that, right? That seems right. But I think also, at least in my experience of the film, right, I am delighting in the fact that Tommy Wiseau is failing so miserably as a director, as a screenwriter, as a producer, as an actor, right? That there's something comedic about that failure, right? Similar to, a lot of classic characters in comedy, like say Basil Fawlty from Fawlty Towers, right? That he takes himself very seriously at his job, right? While at the same time, he's incapable of doing it well, right? And so he's a buffoonish character, and his buffoonishness comes out of, and the delight we take in his buffonishness comes from the fact that he takes himself seriously when he really shouldn't, right? Where if you were to step outside of himself and look at himself from a perspective of, a non-deluded individual, he would see that he's foolish, right? That he's a buffoon, right? And so I think that Tommy Wiseau is that sort of character, right? But in real life, that he takes himself seriously. It's clear he's taking himself very seriously in this endeavor of making The Room, but he fails, right? And so that's where I want to push, right? It seems like my delight comes from my sense of superiority to him, right? That I couldn't perhaps have the sense of delight and the bizarreness if I didn't also have, the sense of superiority, the sense of what the hell is this guy thinking, what's wrong with him, and so forth. So I'll just stop there and let you take over. So what do you think?
Good, yeah. Thanks. That's so I think that's like a super important objection. And in the paper, we say like, look, like you're right. It's unquestionable that one way of enjoying movies that are so bad they're good is that you take a kind of like delight in the failures, and you feel, like you say, superior to them. We call this like a kind of Schadenfreude. Our position is that definitely happens. Like you say, like there's plenty of evidence that this is the experience of people who enjoy good bad art. But we think that if that's all that there is to the experience of good bad art, then it would be morally problematic. So, I mean, actually, we are committed to saying that this kind of Schadenfreude is morally problematic. I guess there's like a couple things I want to say in response. So on our view, the delight, so again, like we're saying, it's psychologically, it happens that people adopt this Schadenfreude response. We're saying that there's another thing that people, in fact, another attitude that people in fact do, which, as you said, involves, you notice a mismatch between what they intend the thing to be and what the actual result is. They don't, you know, they're not congruent, and there's a sort of bizarreness, and that's what we enjoy. So a couple things I want to say there. Actually, a lot. So one is that that incongruity, that's also a prominent theory of humor, right? So you might think that kind of incongruity can also result in humor. You don't need so the superiority theory is one theory of humor, but if we ever think things are funny just because they're incongruous, then this is one way to generate some sort of like incongruity. Now, I think you're totally right that we can't watch these films and like, we can't miss the fact that Tommy Wiseau failed, right? And that is amazing. But one thing I would want to do is like push around at the characterization, push back on the characterization of it is like feeling superior to. I think it's not just feeling superior to, it also could be a kind of like awe or wonderment, like how can he not notice it, right? If I take that approach, I'm not saying like, oh, what an idiot, how come he couldn't know this? I'm saying something more like, that is amazing that he did not register the way we would the way we would respond. So that like
sorry, are those two responses mutually exclusive, right? I feel like you could have both, right? That I'm just at awe and wonder at, wow, like, why didn't anyone stop? Why didn't anyone intervene? Why did he think that what he was doing was good? Well, at the same time, right, it's sort of because of that I feel superior, right? That seems to like follow on, and maybe it doesn't. I think you're right. It doesn't necessarily have to, right? But I think that often it does, right? So how cleanly can we separate these things, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, I guess that's a good, where's the line between sort of being awed by something and feeling like superior to it? I mean, the way we put it is you can see something, I mean, you can imagine something that you make, that you like don't understand how bad it's going to be, sort of, and then later you realize, oh, that was like awful. Maybe it's like a pasta sauce you tried to create yourself or something, and you it's just like terrible, and you might think like, and then you think it's hilarious, right? It's like, so, you know, it has that same kind of incongruity. But I don't think like, I mean, well, actually, you could push back on this, but it doesn't seem to me like you're feeling superior to yourself. I think what you're laughing at there is just like the raw failure, in the sense of like a wonder or just like hilarity at the way like plans can fail, like plans can flop. The other thing I wanted to say is that regarding your comparison of Tommy Wiseau to Basil Fawlty, or Basil, I don't know how you pronounce
Basil,
it.
he's British,
Basil.
so Basil.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about pasta sauce, so basil fits there, but yeah, it's Basil.
It's been a long time since I've seen too long. So Basil Fawlty is a buffoon, but I think, so one reason I'd be resistant to characterize our response to Tommy Wiseau in the same way we respond to Basil is because his intentions aren't transparent in the same way. He's not, I mean, he is playing a character, but for good, bad art, when in general, you can't see intentions in the same way because they're not sort of representing their intentions in that same way. Now, I am an intentionalist. I think intentions are important. And so I don't think there's any doubt that we are like, you can just tell what he's in what he wants you to do. But I think like without that thicker kind of like psychological insight a lot of times, that you don't that you can't fully realize this like feeling better than, or what a buffoon this guy is. You know, I think you need that kind of thicker representation. Now, you just a couple moves, you might say, oh, you see Tommy Wiseau in the room, but I mean, okay, well, we can have that conversation. But think about all the good, bad artworks where you just the creator isn't a character or isn't themselves represented.
Yeah, good. And so I think that's where I wanted to take this. And so there seems to be a difference in at least my response to The Room, right? Where it seems that Tommy Wiseau thinks he's doing awesome, that he thinks he's a cool guy, that he thinks he's an innovator and so forth, right? He thinks that's what's happening, right? I think a great comparison there, and my response is very different to a lot of Ed Wood's movies, right? And so like Plan 9 from Outer Space is, you know, a paradigm example of good, bad artwork, right? And it's not clear to me that Ed Wood thinks he's cool. It's not clear to me that Ed Wood thinks he's doing awesome. I don't think Ed Wood cares, right? I mean, if you've seen Tim Burton's biopic of, or biopic, however the hell you pronounce that word, of you know, Ed Wood's life, right? He just wants to get the shot done, right? He's just excited to be making a movie and getting to do this, and he doesn't care, you know, where the money comes from. He doesn't care really who the actors are, if they can act, right? There's no sense of him taking himself seriously to me in the way that Tommy Wiseau does, and so my response is very different, right? That I'm rooting for these people, right? And you know, I have this sense of like, aw, aren't they so sweet, right? Like they think they're doing good, and that's adorable. Whereas when, and you know, that's a superiority relation, I think, in a certain sense, and maybe that's morally problematic. But whereas with The Room, right, at least with Tommy Wiseau, right, maybe not the other actors, but at least with Tommy Wiseau, there's a sense of you think you're better than you are, and that irks me, right? And so I'm delighting in, right? Part of my enjoyment of the bizarreness is constituted by my delight in his failure.
Oh man, that's great. So I can't believe. Okay, I mean, I think I might be about to like make a recommendation about how you should watch the movie, which oof, I can't believe I'm doing that. But
Please do.
um, I mean, like, and also like disbelief at you. So like, do you like? Right, Tommy Wiseau thinks he's cool and he's not. For me, that doesn't elicit a reaction of superiority. That elicits a reaction of pity. So I'm like, oh, like this poor guy, like what's going on in there? Like, and I think there's like that's a reason for more empathy almost. That like, I mean, in the same way, like you can I mean, I've tried to be cool in all kinds of ways, and I can think of many ways that I've failed, and that almost like makes me identify with him more, right? And so then it's more like the fact of the failed intentions itself rather than feeling superiority.
Yeah, I can't think of a case where I've tried to be cool and failed. None are ringing a single bell. And so maybe that's just a difference between you and me, right? Our backgrounds are such that we can, they elicit different responses because they're tugging at different strings. No, I see where you're coming from, right? Entirely. I feel like, you know, maybe the difference is like background understanding, right, of the making of the piece, right? Ed Wood is, you know, bilking people of money, right, in order to make these movies, right? He's, you know, scrapping together cash from various places, right? Whereas Tommy Wiseau mysteriously has millions of dollars, right? And so, you know, maybe that sense of, you know, like his economic superiority, his smugness that, oh, well, I'm a millionaire, so I can do this. You know, but again, it's not exactly clear where the money came from. It seems to have been self-financed, but where that money came from, right? Whether it was inherited, possibly, who knows? I'll throw it
But
back to you.
I think like yeah, so I don't think it's just about the description of the case because I know about the his shady, people aren't quite sure where he got this money, and yeah, he seems to be very wealthy. But then you think about this guy like presenting this artwork to all these people who are just howling at it, and they think it's hilarious, and it becomes a meme, and it's like, I mean, I'm no friend of billionaires, but I would say like I would feel for anybody in that situation. Like, so I guess I'm trying to say it's not a description of the case so much as like different ways of reacting that I think. So, and like all we're trying to really do is just show that it doesn't have to involve Schadenfreude. So like, I mean, I guess the thinnest possible defense of our case would be like, I don't appreciate that way. So we defended our view. But I mean, part of it might be just like, hey, maybe you should maybe an upshot of reviews like you should empathize more with the creators of good bad movies. Or, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe I need more empathy, is the upshot, perhaps.
Yeah, I've been saying that.
Yeah,
No,
you've been saying that for
yeah.
years. Uh, a final point, I think that, I think you talk about this in the paper. I'm literally looking at the paper as if that's going to help me right now. That, that these kinds of bad art, right? The fact that they're out there and the fact that they can gain this cult following, right, has the potential to inspire people, right? That if this person can do this, right? If this person can make art, if this, if the Shags can make this record, right? If Tommy Wiseau can make this movie, if Ed Wood can do this, right, and get it out there and find an audience, then anybody can. And hey, I'm anyone. So why don't I make some art, right? And damn the consequences, right? If it's great, awesome. If it's mediocre, okay, I'll try again. If it's really bad, hopefully it's so bad it's good, right? Just hopefully, the one category that perhaps I want to miss out on is just the bad, right? That it's bad and there's nothing redeeming, there's nothing bizarre, it's just boring or stupid or, racist or sexist and so forth. So I want to, leave us on that thought, right? So what do you think about sort of the inspirational capacity of these works of art?
I think that's a really cool aspect that we hadn't thought about, me or Matt, when we wrote the paper. But that seems totally right to me. I think I'm also all about the democratization of art, you might think like, yeah, this would license people to like be more adventurous about making art. Although, of course, I mean the paradox of good bad art is it's the category, as like Madeline Ransom pointed out to us one time. It's the one category you can't get into by trying. So, you might say, try your best, and what's the phrase, like shoot for the stars, even if you miss, you'll land on the moon or whatever. But like hopefully you end up making this good bad artwork.
I don't know. I feel like though, you're familiar with Tim and Eric's work.
I
Right?
love Tim and Eric.
I feel like they almost get it, right? Like they're intentionally making art that's so bad that it's good, right? They're working with that aesthetic, right? And they're like almost there at succeeding in doing this, right? Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's a perfect example. And in fact, originally we had like a whole section devoted to talking about Tim and Eric. So a couple things there. One thing is that they're employing people who truly are doing so bad it's good stuff, like David Liebehard and James Quall, and that is for sure so bad it's good. Now we actually deny that Tim and Eric is so bad it's good. They're trying to make it look like crap. And so in as much as it looks like crap, they're succeeding in their intentions. So like someone like Matt Stroll disagrees. He thinks like, no, this is still generally the same kind of thing. It's still the same campy kind of thing. But I mean, to go back to our point, I mean, like my experience of what I appreciate about Tim and Eric is like I know they're in on the joke, and that changes like what's happening in here. It changes my experience. And I mean, Matt has good evidence that he points to about like the similarity of the appreciative practice, but I think internally just the mechanisms of our appreciation just can't. It's not the same mechanism. So we can't call Tim and Eric so bad it's good. We can't call Rocky Horror Picture Show so bad it's good. Anything that's like intentionally made to look like this, it's just not so bad it's good. Because if you think badness means failed intentions, well, badness doesn't mean just looking some kind of way. It means like having failed, and these things precisely succeed.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, John. I think we'll leave it at that, though obviously there's a lot more to say about this topic. So thanks so much.
Great. Thanks so much, Brandon.